Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2026-27 New Coordinator Webinar Training Series from the California Department of Education. This is a very high-level training, and it's designed to support you in your coordinator role. And we plan to share some key resources, provide some guidance, and hopefully give you some best practices to help you succeed in your role. That said, my name is Paul Valencia, and I'm going to be your producer for today. And today's webinar is a repeat from May, and we're going to focus on prepping initial and initial alternate ELPAC. But before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. First up, all participants are muted. If you want to submit a question, please use the Q&A feature. For this webinar series, we only use the Q&A feature and not the chat. And we will be monitoring the Q&A during this webinar. Also, a link for today's resource guide was emailed to you yesterday, and I'm going to go ahead and place it in the chat and drop it in there so you can access it if you didn't get the email. And just to keep in mind, you'll need to save it to your own Google Drive in order to make edits to it, okay? Also, a recording of today's session, well, today's session is being recorded, rather, and it will be posted in about a week or so on the upcoming and on-demand trainings webpage of the CAASPP and ELPAC website. All righty. With that said, I'm very pleased to introduce today's expert panelists. We have Jadine Jones from Sacramento County Office of Education and Sarah Nitzos from Los Angeles County Office of Education. All righty.
Thank you, Paul. And hi, I'm Jadine Jones from the Sacramento County Office of Education. And it's great to have you with us this afternoon as we're talking about preparing for the initial and the initial alternate ELPAC. So some things that we're going to talk about today: the purpose of the initial ELPAC, preparing for the administration, the initial ELPAC 30-day process, what to do after testing, some homework, basically some action items, and work on getting answers to your questions. So the purpose. So the purpose of the initial and the initial alternate ELPAC, it is a screening assessment, and it's represented by the little small ELPACA there. And the initial ELPAC is not the same as the summative ELPAC, although the initial alternate ELPAC blueprint is the same as the summative alternate ELPAC. So the purpose of both of these assessments is to determine whether the student is an English learner or not. The initial ELPAC is aligned to the 2012 California English Language Development Standards, and then the initial alternate ELPAC is aligned to the ELD standards via the ELD connectors. The initial ELPAC is a computer-based assessment, and it measures 4 domains. It's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The initial alternate ELPAC is also computer-based, and it measures proficiency, but through integrating listening and reading into receptive task types and speaking and writing into expressive task types. So this allows the students to respond in their preferred modality of communication. So who takes the ELPAC or the initial alternate ELPAC? So students who have never taken the ELPAC, they are entering a California school for the very first time, a public school. They have completed the home language survey and have indicated a language other than English or American Sign Language. They are in grade kindergarten or higher, so no TK students. And then for the initial alternate ELPAC, these students have to have it identified in their IEP, and they are students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, and it's been indicated in their IEP to take the alternate assessment. Taking the initial ELPAC or the initial alternate ELPAC happens within 30 calendar days of enrollment. So we're going to walk through that process a little bit today. So all LEA coordinators, which are those of you in the room probably, you need to complete or verify in Moodle that someone's been certified. So it can be an LEA or an LEA coordinator or a designee. Your test examiners must complete AST scoring every year for the initial ELPAC. And then you need to do this training for the initial alternate only if you have students enrolled that need the initial alternate. As an LEA LPAC coordinator, if you were the coordinator in the spring, you received an email with the link to the AST, which is the Administration Scoring and Training website, which gives you access to Moodle. So we will be showing you doing some demonstrations today. If you were not the coordinator at that time and you do not have the Moodle access code, you didn't get it, you're going to email Moodle support at scoe.net, and we can put that I'll put that in the chat in a minute if you need that link. But I'm going to be demonstrating that for you because with why you need access to the AST is because there are the enrollment keys. So think of a key that unlocks the different that gives you the key to unlock for training. So there's LEA trainings, grades 6 through 12, K through 12, and then for the initial alternate LPAC. In Moodle, you need to complete the required course or verify that you've done it. And like I said, a lot of Moodle information right there. If this is very new to you, I'm going to be providing a demonstration before I head out of this today, okay? So for being able to use Moodle, you need an account. Okay? So this is created within Moodle. And then for your users, like your test examiners, the people who will be testing your students with the initial LPAC, they need a Moodle account also. This can be created using a template, and there's a template within Moodle. I'll show you how to get to that. Or individuals can create their own accounts. The only thing about that is making sure that they have all of the required information to create the account. And then there's a great resource, and it's the Moodle training site user guide. This is linked in your resource guide. And this guide gives you helpful information on how to navigate Moodle. If you're unsure where to start, there's also a new item in Moodle called a decision-making tool. And then that helps you identify what specific trainings you need to take for the role that you're doing in Moodle. Once you gain access to those enrollment keys and you know who your test examiners are, it's your responsibility. These are secure. It is your responsibility to share those with your test examiners. So remember, this key unlocks the different training. And then there is a way to monitor the users within Moodle. I believe there are 3 individuals, and you can put their names in there as to who can see the reports, and then monitoring the course completion. Because before a test has been administered, your test examiners need to have calibrated within Moodle. And then it is a locally determined on how to train your test examiners who are not doing the speaking or scoring and writing. So I've been talking about Moodle. So now I'm going to show you a brief demonstration on Moodle. Right? So this is Moodle. And I'm actually logged in, so I'll show you what that looks like before, right? So this is moodle.casp-lpac.org. This is what people refer to just as Moodle, right? You need an account. You can create an account right here. You click on that, enter your information. I have an account, and so up here in the top right-hand corner, I can log in. I had mentioned to you the Moodle training site user guide. It's linked right here, right? So once you log in, and I prefer the dark mode. To me, it's just a little bit easier to see some of the things, but that's why it looks a little bit different to you maybe right now. So right here, as I mentioned, this is the Moodle training site user guide. If you click and open this up, there's a link here for creating user accounts, right? And that'll show you how to create the accounts. And then mentioned the Moodle enrollment keys. So through these instructions, I'm scrolling down here to the section that's called the ELPAC LEA coordinator, and it says to log on to the administration and scoring training site. That's the AST that I've spoken about. And so when I click on that, it brings you to this page. This is where you need that code because you can't get into Moodle unless you have the secret code, right? And I have a secret code that I just entered in there, and it brings me to this page. Within this page, I mentioned that there is the LEA verification. Up here in the top right hand where this green neon check is, it's called the initial ELPAC training verification. If you or have or someone in your organization completed the training in 25-26 or in 26-27, this will say training is current and it'll tell you who. This is me. I'm up to date. So that verification has been completed. Someone in your organization needs to be trained and or verified, right? Back into the AST site. We are working on the initial Moodle training site. So this top left tab, when you click on that, it will look something like this. And so these are enrollment keys. These are secure items, right? So I've blocked these out. These are my codes that tell you for Sacramento County Office Education. So here's the LEA certification. I did the K through 12 because our county office, our grades K through 12, I needed this enrollment key to get into my training. For your test examiners, you're going to need this enrollment key to get in, right? So you need your AST code, and then it brings you in here, and this is from Moodle. I just did a screenshot so that you wouldn't see all my secret keys and codes. And then on the bottom of this page, remember I mentioned that you need reporting access. So I am listed as the first user so that I can see the completion reports. There, below this on the actual page, there are two others that can have access to seeing the reports. All right, so that is in that section. I'm going to go back to the Moodle homepage and talking about the reports. When you are in the actual training, like the initial ELPAC training, it's right in here. And then that brings you to this screen. I had mentioned there's a decision-making tool. Let me stop for just a minute. I was able to go straight in this because I had already entered my key and unlocked it. So once you unlock it, it'll allow you back in. You would not be able to do this without doing that for the first time and having to get in. So then there's this decision-making tool. So you're not quite sure, does this person need to take Moodle? What part of Moodle do they need to take? This is a great resource right here. And then within the initial ELPAC test examiner, right here under this top header, there's this reports tab. And that's where you'll be able to see who has completed what parts of Moodle. And there are different ones. I usually go to the course completion. And then you can sort it. You can go all names, or I went by last name, tried to pre-populate this a bit. And then there's my name. And then you can see, oh, she's done this piece, this piece. It tells you what parts I've done. Okay? So that is the AST codes, how to get into Moodle, entering the names for who to see the scores, and the verification process. So hopefully you find that it's helpful to you, and don't be afraid to reach out if you need help. And if you need that code, you're going to email Moodle support@scoe.net, or you can contact your LEA success agent. Okay? So that was a lot of information. Take a deep breath, and just a few tips within Moodle is just be prepared to support your test examiners to help them along the way. And then you're going to want to figure out, learn your LEA's current system for collecting the completion certificates. If that's you that's monitoring that, um, they as soon as you finish or the individual finishes the training, they can download the certificate, they could email it to you, whatever your system is, but you're going to need a system, especially if you're a larger district. Having help monitoring that is extremely helpful. So getting prepared for the initial alternate LPAC. That's what we're doing in this Moodle stuff right now, right? So you are going to want to order their K2 writing materials and any picture cards that you may need. You're going to want to verify SSIDs, which is your student statewide identifier number. Look at your testing schedule and then plan for your data reporting after testing is completed. You're ordering your K2 materials. I'll provide a brief demo before I pass it over to Sarah. And then want to make sure that your SSIDs, that comes from CalPADS. So you're going to want to work with your CalPADS administrator or your student information system person, because students have to have an SSID before you'll be able to test them. And they have to have the identifier of a TBD, which comes from that home language survey, and somebody entering that into the the student information system into CalPADS. So they have to have a SSID and be to be determined for their language. And just another reminder, if you're going to have the initial alternate LPAC, that student has to have a valid IEP stating that. And then talking about your testing schedule, some of you may be testing right now during the summer, and you're going to plan accordingly for that. Making sure you have the SSIDs is critical. And then if you're going to start testing at the beginning of the year, what does that look like? Who are the individuals involved? And then as a reminder, initial LPAC runs all year long. So if you get students in who on that home language survey, it's a language other than English or ASL, you're going to administer the initial. It's all year long, right? And then there are some LEAs that are selected to participate in the rotating score validation process, RSVP. And you'll get notified if that happens to be you. So there's a process for that. And then make a plan for your data reporting after testing. So who's going to update your school's student information system? Who's notifying the teachers that these students are English learners? And then you need to make sure that you get those scores sent to the parent. the initial ELPAC materials ordered. So the initial and the summative ELPAC require the use of paper booklets for grades kindergarten through grade 2 in the writing domain. And so you'll need to actually order those. I'll do a brief demo. And then the paper materials, they're ordered in TOMS, and you can request special print versions if you need large print or braille. And then the primary testing window closed in May, but fear not, there's a supplemental window open, and that's what we're going to use today. And you're going to want to make sure your shipping address is correct. And then you also tell ETS what days you're closed and you can't receive items. And then how many booklets should you order? You can use your historical enrollment data for that. So checking on your counts and making sure that you're not ordering a lot of extra books because there is an overage charge there. And then there's a way to track your data, which is track your orders. All right, I am in TOMS. So I logged into ELPAC TOMS. Let me try to make this just a bit bigger so you can see this. I'm in the demo site here, but in the top blue banner, you're going to click orders. And this is my demo site. And so in the non-delivery dates up here in the top left, it shows you, you're going to go through and you just mark on the calendar which dates you cannot receive orders, right? So if you're closed around Labor Day, for different holidays, you're going to mark that information. And then I mentioned the primary order, and I'll show you what will happen if you try to do this for initial ELPAC. And it tells me, oh, that's already passed. Fear not, right? You're going to go to supplemental order, and then you're going to select your initial, and then the current year, and then the test form if you just need a standard test form. And then this is where I mentioned you need to have a shipping address, not a PO box, but somewhere where your packages can be received. And then it brings you here and it tells you just enter your quantity for how many books you need, review order, bada bing, you are done with that. And then there's a tab up here where you can check your order status. Right? So that's ordering your material demo. And I am going to pass this over to my partner today, Sarah, and she's going to help get us through the end of today's training.
Thank you so much, Jadine. As Paul said at the beginning, my name is Sarah Nitzos, and I'm coming to you from the Los Angeles County Office of Education in the Assessment Unit. And I am happy to continue this journey that Jadine has started us on. So let's take a minute to review the testing resources for initial ELPAC and initial alternate ELPAC. First, there's the DFAs, or the Directions for Administration. These are secure materials. Anytime you have to log into something, it's secure. They're accessed in the Resources tabs in the top of TOMS. They'll include the required scripts and step-by-step instructions for administering the test. It also talks to you about how to enter those speaking and writing scores, which are scored locally during testing and then entered into the system. But good news, if you have DFAs from last year, they can be reused for the 2026-27 school year. There's also the PFAs, which is preparing for administration. They're going to help you with the planning and prep. They are not secure documents, and they're posted in the ELPAC website under the manuals and instructions. That link is in your resource guide. In the ELPAC and CAASPP manuals library, you'll also find the ELPAC Online Test Administration Manual, or the OTAM. You guys filled up with alphabet soup yet? Don't worry, we've got more for you. There's also the alternate ELPAC OTAM. That has the scoring and reporting guide. It also has all of the links that are in our resource guide. So we have the DFAs, the PFAs, and the OTAM. Those three together will give you everything you need to really launch ELPAC properly. So let's get into an eligibility report demonstration because you need to know who is eligible to take the initial LPAC. You're getting into summer, you're going to start the year soon. You need to know who you should be testing. So let's go ahead and take a look at where we go to find that information. You're actually going to start here at the CAASPP ELPAC website and you click TOMS. Now, a lot of things you have to do twice. So you'd click this TOMS button again and you would log in. When you log in, you'll have a selection, possibly if you're the LEA coordinator for both of CAASPP and ELPAC. If you're just ELPAC, it's fine. But if you have the choice, for this one, you're going to select ELPAC. Now from there, you're going to go to reports because we want to know who is going to be taking the initial LPAC. From here, you're going to scroll down until you find the eligibility report. Eligibility. I can never find it, so I'm just going to type it here. There it is, the ELPAC Student Eligibility Report. That's a cheat. If there's a list and it scrolls, sometimes that box is really small on your screen and it's hard to find. If you just start typing in the words you're looking for, it'll get you right there. Now, the wonderful thing about the eligibility report for the ELPAC is you have the ability to pick initial, alternate, and initial LPAC. So you don't have to run two separate reports. You just run one and you get all the information you need. Now this is a demo site. So we're going to run that report and it will give you a list of all of the students. The wonderful thing about this list is it will identify whether or not they've already been identified as a special education student, and it'll give you a lot of information. Importantly, it'll identify their grade level, which is going to come in very handy when we get to our next screen. So let's continue on with this. You have a timeline. It is very important. If you're taking notes right now, write this down. 30 days. However, it's not 30 days, it's 30 calendar days. The window a student must be tested on the initial LPAC or the initial alternate LPAC is within 30 calendar days of enrollment. The initial LPAC process is really key because it starts with the students being identified. And as Jadine said earlier, they're identified with that home language survey that's completed when they enroll in your school. If a language other than English or ASL is indicated, that student status in CalPADS needs to be set to TBD. That also means they need to have an SSID number. Students with the TBD status must be tested within those 30 calendar days of enrollment if they've not already taken an LPAC before or they've not already been reclassified as an English language learner in California. This is why it is essential that someone checks CalPADS first. Make sure that that student doesn't already exist in the system with an English language designation. Students with an IEP indicating alternate assessments would take the initial alternate LPAC. Part 2 of that is to notify the parents and their guardians before testing. There's a CDE template, or you can use a locally approved letter. And you kind of want to allow for 24 to 48 hours after CalPADS entry for that test to appear in the system. If you think you can enter them the same day and then test them the same day, that's not going to work out. So make sure you space it accordingly. Then we're going to prepare to test, complete the enrollment steps, and schedule testing promptly. Ensure that test examiner has been trained and calibrated prior to that testing. That's that Moodle training that Jadine just showed you. Provide those universal tools or perhaps even designated supports if an IEP has not yet specified accommodations. We had a child come walking in for their LPAC testing and they had just broke their dominant arm. So we had to go in and do some designated supports to make sure that child had access to all of the tools they needed. Students must be assessed and have those assessment scores entered into the system. Then there's to be a classification that will automatically populate in CalPADS. For the initial LPAC, it will either give them a classification as an English learner, or EL, or initially fluent English proficient, IFEP. For the initial alternate LPAC, the results will be fluent, intermediate, or novice EL, or IFEP. After testing, as Jadine said earlier, those results need to be reported back to the parents or guardians. Follow your local procedures to update all of your systems and notify staff. All of these steps, from identification to reporting, must be completed within those 30 calendar days. Testing could have begun as early as July 1st. So if you're new to the role, I'm going to show you in just a minute how you can check the status of where you are right now. Some people do summer testing, and some people do pre-enrollment in CalPads to help ensure that that 30-day timeline stays on track. All right, let's talk a little bit about requirements. ELPAC is a required state assessment for the English language proficiency. If you are unable to test within those 30 days for any reason whatsoever, document, document, document. Keep track of the whys and the wherefores. We had a child who came in that first week of school. After we said hello to them, they were a little nervous and upset. So we said, we're going to give you to tomorrow. That child never showed up again. They got a serious case of flu, and we didn't see them until mid-October. So it's really important that you document, document, document. All eligible students are required to test. There is no parent opt-out for any reason on the ELPAC. The initial and initial alternative ELPAC test design. Let's take a moment to talk about this because there are some special things that happen with this test. This test is broken into 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. In order to take this assessment, when you set up the room, you need 2 devices, one for the students and one for the teachers. Teachers will need to be in the TE interface. They'll need to log in, they'll need to approve students. If their script is digital, they'll be looking at their DFAs, and they need to enter scores on that teacher device. The students must test on a device that has the special secure browser installed. When you plan, it's important to go to the CAASPP ELPAC webpage and to the Go Now resource to see the appropriate time windows. So let me show you what that looks like and where that is, because this document is awesome when planning about how long will this take. So on our CAASPP ELPAC website, you can see initial ELPAC estimated testing times. And you can see it's already been updated for 26-27. You can see for each test, for each grade level, about how long the testing will take. So let's talk about how this goes, because for speaking, it is one-on-one for all students, regardless of the grade level. So staffing and spacing are crucial for this. Kindergarten through 1st grade is also administered one-on-one. Grade 2 writing is the only exception. You'll need to check out the OTAM for details. K through 2 writing uses those paper testing booklets that Jadine just showed you how to order, but it's still part of the online test. Grades 3 through 12, the listening, reading, and writing can be given in groups of up to 20 students per test examiner. If you have additional students, you'll need an additional proctor that has been trained as well. For the initial alternate ELPAC, it also has some special planning considerations. That one is administered the whole way through, one-on-one to students. As specified in the DFA, student responses are entered into the student's test interface by the test examiner, or by the student if they're able to. So staffing and spacing for this is especially crucial. These assessments need to be administered by someone who's really familiar with that student's communication mode. And this test measures their listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And they group them. Expressive is those reading and speaking, and receptive is reading and listening. So writing and speaking, reading and listening, and they're integrated test types. All right, so you've done all the testing. Woo! After testing, what happens? Before we get to after testing, we need to monitor the testing. Because initial ELPAC and initial alternate ELPAC are given year-round, the summer, and anytime those students enter your district, it is crucial that you are constantly monitoring to make sure that none of your students are missed. There are 2 main ways to check completion. One is in TOMS, and the other is in the test completion section. Let's dive on over there and take a look. So again, you would go to TOMS, where we were, and you want to go to the home page. homepage has a lot of helpful resources. There we go. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and you can see my testing window. It started July 6th and it goes through the end of next year pretty much. It goes to June 30th, 2027. You can see I have 344 days remaining and it is in progress. But if I keep scrolling down, now this is a demo site, so it probably looks a lot different than yours. Hopefully you have a few numbers, or if you've not done summer testing, you don't have any numbers. You can see that 4.72 of my initial ELPACs have been started and 4.09 have been completed. It will also show you how many calendar days you are past for some of your students. My initial alternate ELPAC is doing quite well. I have 68% of my students started and several completed, and this blue bar will track it for you. At the very bottom of this page, you're able to see how much of your SSRs, your student score reports, have been released. This is really helpful to know because that's how you communicate the results to the parents, is through these student score reports. So that's just one way. You're saying to yourself right now, but I need to know who I need to test. That's helpful and global, but I need to know who these kids are. So we're going to go to a different place. We're going to go to the test completion site. I'm going to get there real easy by going up here to links, and you can see here completion status system. So I'm just going to pop on over there. It's also called the TIDE, which stands for Test Information Distribution System. Oh, raspberries, I got logged out. Sorry about that. Give me a second. Let me log back in. This happens if you don't stay on top of it. Sometimes it kicks you out and you got to get back in the system. Okie dokie. So TIDE. I am the ELPAC coordinator. So I'm going to go in and it is 2627. That's the first step to get in. Now, from there, I'm going to say submit. And I have some options. I can check my planning and test management, but I'm going to go to test progress reports. My favorite is search by SSID. So let's say I have a group of kids and I want to check. I want to see where they are on their initial ELPAC. I can put their SSIDs in here and it will tell me exactly what tests they've completed and what tests are still in progress. I'm going to go to planning and management. I'm going to go to the next. I'm going to go to advanced search. If you're not familiar with this, this will walk you through each step and it'll guide you through the process. For the sake of getting down to it, I'm going to go to advanced search. Again, you can ask for a specific student. Here you can go by last name, first name, all the information. But here's where I really want to draw your attention. For tests, selected tests, make sure you pick the initial ELPAC or initial alternate ELPAC. You want to make sure you're actually looking for the correct test. And then here, I want to know students who have not completed or students who have started. Usually you want to know students who have not completed. And you're going to generate that report. Now it's going to tell you all of the students who have not done the initial alternate. And of course, that was not the test I wanted to look at. So I'm going to go back because I want to look at that initial. There we go. Next step. I want to know students who have not started, and I want the initial ELPAC. And I'm going to search. I want to show you this because there is a very important part. There's two parts for the speaking online data entry interface and the speaking. So students will log into the speaking so that you will see the test and you'll be able to give them the prompts, but you also have to go back in and enter those scores. So you'll see speaking on here twice. You see it right here for speaking and then data entry interface. So make sure that you've entered those scores, otherwise it's not going to come up as completed. All right. So now we've checked our status. We've noticed our kids are done. We're doing really, really well. It's time for after students have tested. You want to go ahead and download those test results as soon as possible. You'll be able to download test results in TOMS. Scores will be available about 48 hours after all the domains have been submitted and scored. Let's look at where you download those results. My favorite place to download them, and it's probably yours too, is to go into Reports, and I want to look for the data report, Student Score Data File. Now, this data file is going to give you everything in one giant spreadsheet. Super helpful as an administrator and super helpful to share with sites. There's also the Guardian Letter data file, and there's also the Student Score data file. You'll also be able to download your SSRs in that system. So about 48 hours after you've submitted all the domains, you cannot get any scores until all domains have been submitted. The results automatically populate CalPADS, so you do not need to worry. They will have an EL for English Language Learner or initially fluent English proficient or IFEP status. CalPADS has an export process of the ELAS record that you can then use to update your student information system or SIS. TOMS does not update your SIS. CalPADS does not update your SIS, so you need to make sure you know what the local process is at your site. You need to notify those parents within those 30 days, like we said earlier, and make sure that those student score reports or SSRs are distributed as you need to. There's a wonderful parent notification letter template that's provided with lots of different translations that are available. It's a wonderful resource that you can send home to all of the families so they understand what the results are saying. You'll find links to all of those in the guide that has been provided to you today. So we have a lot of resources that are in that link guide that we've given you. There's resource materials that can help you with all of the steps. Start today. Download that coordinator checklist. Visit the coordinator how-to hub. It's got videos of coordinators speaking about their roles at different size LEAs, so you can kind of hear the steps in the process from someone in a similar role. Also check out the TOMS resources, the accessibility resources, but most of all, let's get to our homework. Our homework really is to start taking action. And I'm going to skip on this action item, and I'm going to say the first thing you should do is find out who your success coordinator is. Figure out your region, and on a sticky note that you're going to put somewhere on the wall in front of you, write down the 1-800 number that's to contact your success agent and your region number. That way you have fingertip access to them. So some other action items for you to take action on today is to download that coordinator checklist for both the initial ELPAC and the initial alternate ELPAC. Visit that coordinator how-to hub. If there's something that's tripping you up, I'm sure there's a video to help you. Figure out what your local process is for those home language surveys. Find out who your CalPADS coordinator is. They're going to be your best friend for the first month or two of school and thereafter as new students enroll. Get those Moodle keys and complete the Moodle LEA certification if it has not already been completed. Especially check if the LEA certification has been completed for the initial alternate ELPAC if you have a student enrolled who will need that. Ensure that your LEA has ordered the initial ELPAC K through 2 writing booklets like Jadine showed us how to do. You might need to place a supplemental order. And consider ordering those initial alternate ELPAC picture cards. If you're administering it, they are very helpful resources. All the links to all of these things are in the resource guide that we have provided to you today. And we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. Jadine, are there any questions that we should be elevating at this point?
Yeah, Sarah, thank you.
Yeah.
So you actually talked about it during your presentation, but wanted to also maybe just have you repeat it if you can remember off of your head. But regarding, so there's a question about student scores from the initial,
Mhm.
and you were pretty clear about CalPADS and TOMS do not talk to your student information system, right? So, so how do you want to maybe address how you get that information updated at your local LEA, or I can share, like for ours, we only have a handful of initials. So I'm working directly with my CalPADS person to make sure that my student information system, my SIS, is updated. How about you?
So I had a lot of initials in my district, and I would work with, I had a support person, and we would get the list after all of our students had finished assessing, and we would sit there and we would manually enter into PowerSchool, changing the students' access from TVD to EL or IFEP in our SIS one by one for well over 300 students. It took a lot, but it was a process we had. Now, I've heard that PowerSchool now has an upload function where there's a CSV file. I'm not sure about that rumor, but perhaps look into that. But yes, CalPads and Toms do not talk to Aries or PowerSchool or PeopleSoft or any of the student information systems. So that is something you want to figure out how they did it in your district before you, and then create a system that works best for you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. There's a question in there about how to find your LEA success agent. Do you happen to have the ability to demo or not right now?
I
Don't mean to
believe
throw you a major curveball, sorry.
I believe you need to know your region. You know what, Jenny Dean, do you want to take over sharing? Do you have the ability? Would you walk us through it? I
All
can
right.
share.
Okay. Yes, got it. All right. I let me answer one more question before I take over, because there's another question in there
Oh,
where the person wanted to know where to find out the LEA certification person from their site. You know, I showed you in the AST. So this is on the casp-lpac.org website. And I went to training and communication, and then test administration and training tutorials. And then this is where you can get the link to the administration scoring and training site, or the AST. And then it brings you here. Remember, this is where you need your secret code in. And then once you're on this page and it fully loads, right here in the top right-hand corner, initial train ELPAC verification. All right, so that was one of the questions in there. They had asked for a demo. So let me go back to the CAASPP and ELPAC, and you want to know how to find your success agent. So you can use the search feature. And I just love it. Look at that. First one, LEA Success Agent Lookup, and it brings you here, and you can enter the name. We are Sacramento. And then right here, this shows me who my success agent is. You want to get this email address and put it in your favorites, whoever your success agent is. All right. So there we go,
there's
Sarah.
there's another question saying, how long do you keep the writing booklets secure? That's a great question. They're secure until they are scored, and then you destroy them on site. In the initial, oh, Paul wants to answer. Go ahead, Paul. Chime on in.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just putting that you're answering it live. That's all.
Mm,
Sorry
Oh,
all
about
okay.
right.
that.
I didn't want to squelch your opportunity to share. So in initial LPAC, you do not send the test booklets in. They are scored on site. And after that, you need to keep them until the SSRs have been generated and you make sure everything's created. Then you can go ahead, and I would keep them till the end of the year, and then you can securely destroy them with the rest of your materials. Now, if they are the unused booklets, hold on to them, because sometimes you can reuse them the next year. Not all the time, but if you notice, I said, hey guys, we can use our DFAs again this year. So sometimes materials are able to be reused, and sometimes there are small changes in the assessment. So we want to make sure we stay up to date and keep in touch with your success agents.
Absolutely. And then there was a question about Like how do I know if I'm an RSVP or not? Maybe they
Oh,
just came into this role. So I'm still sharing my screen. And what I did is in the search tab, I just entered RSVP, and this will bring you to the RSVP for initial. And it's the same type of process. It gives you all the details if you have been selected. And then you can enter your LEA in here and find out if you happen to be an RSVP LEA, right? So great. Thank you, Sarah.
thank you. Have you seen, is there a policy or rule that says someone other than the examiner should score the writing domains? I'm new to this role, and what was done previously, the examiner scored every domain. So the person who is working with the child and is in the room during the writing process should be the one to score the writing. However, as long as they have been trained and calibrated using Moodle and your local training, that's something that can be a local decision. Jadine, anything to add to that?
No, I think you hit it.
All right. So please go download those coordinator checklists. They have so much information and very user friendly. So to keep you on your timeline, check out that coordinator how-to hub. Look at all those Tom's amazing resources and find your success agent. Jadine, any other tips for success?
Oh, I think you hit it. Uh, Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Jadine. All right, Paul, take us out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, JD. Thank you, Sarah. Great presentation. And thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. Well, we have time for maybe two more. And it looks like three questions just came up. So if you want to take them, we
Oh,
can take it on till about maybe 3:56, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Perfect. The
oh,
first one is local training, and I'll take that one because I mentioned local training. So annually at my site, it was my process. When you take the LEA coordinator training, it talks to you about what new information you should share with your test examiners. So my process was I would bring in all of my test examiners and I would go through all of that information. We would walk through it together and I would have them do a writing and a speaking calibration exercise all together because I wanted to make sure all of my test examiners felt supported. From there, they had their Moodle keys and they would go into the system and complete the training. Jadine, anything to add to local training?
no, I think that's good. Right, right on top of it.
Thank you.
And that's like I said, as Sarah mentioned, a local decision. I like to have, we only have a few individuals, and I'd like to have them actually do the training within Moodle. That's not conducive for super large districts, but for us, that's what works.
There's a Moodle question for you. I don't know if you have that answer.
Oh, you know what? I do not have that answer as to the time, but it does. Something you should know about Moodle is it does not allow you to get completion until you reach a certain level of success. So most of them are 90%. So you take a little quiz within the system. And once you receive that, then it'll show that check mark is being completed. And so, and the videos, those types of things. So it's, there's an estimated time as to how long it may take, but if you want a very specific answer, you can email Moodle support at scoe.net and see if they're able to provide that for you. But like I said, they won't get a completion until they answer the quiz correctly.
One of the things that Moodle does provide that I found very helpful was it showed me how many times people took that quiz. So if I had a test examiner that took the quiz 7 or 8 times, I might want to have a little chat with them and see what was going on, where they were stuck, so that I might provide them a little bit of support. And I might be a little cautious because I want to make sure that everyone is calibrated properly. And if someone took the quiz over and over and over, that might be a sign that calibration needs to be revisited.
Yeah, great. And I see Paul answered the question about the how-to hub. He put the link in there. And just a reminder, use the ELPAC website and use that search feature. But I'm glad you're interested in the How-To Hub because there are videos there that will help you, like with Moodle, with some of these different processes. And so please check those out. It's exciting.
And keep in mind that 30 calendar days. In assessment, sometimes we have students' days and calendar days, and ELPAC is one of those calendar days. So keep that one written down somewhere.
Right. Great questions today. Thank you
Mhm.
for joining us and for your good questions. And welcome to ELPAC Coordinator Life.
And we wish you all the best. And please keep in touch with these NCT webinars because they give you a lot of crucial information that can really make your on-ramp to this process a lot smoother.
Wonderful. Well, oh, got another question. There's one more question if you want to answer that one real quick. Oh, two more questions.
Oh boy. Okay, the 30 days is from their first day of enrollment. So that's when your 30 calendar days begins. Right?
And the Moodle question, when you have the ability to view certificates, so at the very, very bottom, once you have completed the LEA coordinator, there's a spot where you can say who can see levels of completion. And if you don't have that, you need to email moodle@scoe.net and they will give you access to that. And then from there, you're able to see all of the people who have Moodle keys in your site and their levels of completion of certification. But as Jadine says, that can get very confusing if you have a very large district and it might be too much information. At my site, we had people email us their certificates and then we knew we were able to give them access. All right.
Wonderful.
We,
Okay.
we think we got them all, Paul.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you both. Yeah, Janine and Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for those questions. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. And we want to promote a couple of upcoming training opportunities. And we have one scheduled for August 27th, and that is the assessment systems and TOMS. And then in September, we have accessibility. And then in October, we have practice tests, training tests, and interim assessments. Also, we want to recommend the coffee sessions. And these are virtual meetings and they're hosted by CDE and ETS. And the next one is scheduled for August 11th. And these are dedicated to providing you with timely updates and answering questions from LEAs, test coordinators, administrators, and educators. Very good information there. Also, we want to call to your attention the AIM, which is the Assessment and Accountability Information Meetings. And these are hosted by CDE. They're held virtually. And this is where they get to provide you with the latest updates, developments, and really important information on California's assessment and accountability systems. And you can see a list of topics in your resource guide. And so there is a link in there for all of these trainings and what have you. And then I just want to bring to your attention, we have the 2026 in-person new coordinator convenings, and these are free. They're in person, and we have 5 locations this year. And these are wonderful opportunities to network and get some great information from experienced coordinators. You get to meet your RAN members. There's live demos, etc. And Jadine and Sarah both were presenters last year as well. So definitely want to check that out. Again, links to register are in the resource guide. All right. And also want to bring to your awareness the California Assessment Conference, also known as the CAC. Registration is open and it's going to be held in Riverside, California at the Riverside Convention Center from October 27th through the 29th. These are amazing conferences. Usually about 1,000+ people show up and you could just feel the energy. It's a lot of information, great information for classroom educators, site administrators, etc. The link to the website is in the resource guide as well. And if you haven't already, we would love for you to sign up for the Assessment Spotlight emails. These go out pretty much weekly. And subscription instructions are in the resource guide. And you can also follow CDE on X at CDE Assessments And you can also connect with CDE on Instagram. All righty. So this concludes our training, and we hope that you found the information very helpful and timely. We really appreciate you taking time. And I just want to say on behalf of CDE, my colleagues, Sarah and Jadine, and all the new coordinator training team, we thank you. And we hope to see you at the next webinar. And if you can, there's a little evaluation at the end. If you could give us a little bit of feedback, we would really appreciate it. That said, take good care, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you at the next webinar.